Okay, so what I'm going to do today is show you how to build a bridge, I guess, for corduroying or for bridging over a small creek or whatever, the best ways to do it. Corduroy, what corduroy is if you've got a muddy section, and say the quad's going this way, you lay a bunch of logs perpendicular to the road. And what happens is the quad, or the truck or whatever, drives up onto the logs and it uses the logs as a road to go across. So logs going sideways is the way to make corduroy work. The key thing with corduroy for tree planting is that it's normally used when there's no running water, so you don't have to worry about sedimentation entering the water system. This clip shows Nate building some corduroy in a wet dip. You're just trying to prevent your quad from getting stuck in stagnant water or even mud. You can use logs, the longer the better, or even just branches if there are no logs nearby. Now a bridge, on the other hand, if you've got a creek or something, and say you've got the dip of the creek, you don't want the logs lying in the creek. You want them going the other way. So if you take a look at this, what I've got down here, I've got the creek that runs underneath, and so I've got my logs going this way. Now the only problem, well, I guess to backtrack, if I put the logs in the creek, it would probably still work because I could probably drive the quad across the logs bumping, but the problem is this is actually a running creek and there might be fish downstream, so we want to minimize the amount of mud and sediment. So if you've got the logs right in the creek, every time you drive over them, they're going to hit the bottom and they're going to release sediment. It's going to wash downstream. So for a bigger creek like this, a couple feet across, we're using an actual bridge. So the logs are going this way. Now what I've done was I've laid logs big enough for the quad, and you've got to realize your quad tires are pretty slippery. They're going to want to slide off. So on this side of the bridge, I've got kind of a slope up. So if the quad wheel is down here, it can't kick up easily and fall off the edge of the bridge. To make sure this is secured in place, I've taken a couple pieces of wood, basically pieces that look like this. I took my chainsaw and put a point on them, and then I stuck them in the ground. Here's one of them, and I've just been pounding them into the ground. So this way, the log can't really kick out that far. Now I know on this particular bridge my quad wheels are about this wide, so I really shouldn't have had to go past this one, but I stuck several extras in here because the weight of the quad is going to make them want to push out. So by having these logs here, this one that you're driving on and this one that you're driving on are going to be a lot more solid. Now I haven't actually measured the wheelbase of the quad, but I think it's about this. So I think my wheel's going to be kind of rubbing and sitting right in here. So it's got lots of support. And again, I still put a couple stakes in the edge to be sure. Now the last thing that we have to do, when the quad hits the bridge, not only does it want to make the logs buck out sideways, as you hit the bridge, your wheel, from either direction, your wheels are going to hit the edges of the logs and want to punch them forward. Now this one in particular is pretty good because it's all mud, so the logs are sitting in the muck and they're not going to want to shift much this way. If you're on dry ground, your best bet is to actually cut the logs so they're all even and then build up a little bit of a mud rampart, or use a couple smaller logs across so when the quad comes up, it hits the logs and kind of climbs up, and there's not as much punching action on the end of the logs. The other thing you can do is you can take your chainsaw and shave them down so you've got more of a ramp coming up. Now in this particular one, considering the woods that's around us, we've got this mucky section that I don't want the quad getting stuck in. So I'm going to take a couple scrap small trees, some small spruce or fir, pine, whatever. Something with broad needles is better, so an evergreen coniferous is better. And I'm just going to cut a couple up and lay them across branches, whatnot, this way. And that way, not only does the quad have something spongy to drive over and not get stuck in the mud, that's also going to give it that ramp that we need to get up onto our bridge. But basically, that's all you need for a bridge. And I mean, if you're foreman and you're in a rush to get over something like this, it's a real pain in the ass to think, I'm going to spend an hour and build a bridge like this. But once you've got something, it pays off so much longer for the rest of the day, the next couple of days while you're doing the block. So, you know, it's time well invested if you do it properly. You do something quick and just throw a few logs and try and drive over it, they're just going to keep coming displaced every time you drive over it, and you're going to spend as much time fixing it through the day as you would have building it in the first place. Now you can see I actually end up using broadleaf deciduous, like alders and stuff like that mostly. I've got a little bit of spruce in there, but they may want to save those spruce as crop trees, so I figured I better not cut them all. But these other ones will still work. They got leaves on them, so let's see what happens when the quad comes by. Okay, so the other thing too is when you're laying these branches across, you got to realize what the point of that is for. The corduroy basically increases the surface area. It's basic physics. So with the quad, we've only got 4 points of contact with the ground. It's where the wheels are, and the surface area under each wheel is pretty small. So you've got 500 or 600 pounds bearing down on these 4 small pads. Now, by laying this corduroy across the road, the entire branch or log or whatever is increasing the surface area. The whole thing's being used as surface area. And you can see it too, because if you've got a small one, maybe 6 feet wide, and the quad drives over it, you'll see how it sinks down and the ends kind of pop up because the quad's pushing the pressure down. But if you've got a longer one, like 10 feet, it doesn't bear down as much in the middle and curl up. So longer is actually a little bit better when you're laying this stuff out. But anything is better than just tires on mud.